Bodhicharya Kent is pleased to bring you the second part of Lama Karma Wangmo's teaching on calming the mind to see reality clearly. This is the final part of this teaching. As this audio contains meditation instruction, it is not suitable for listening whilst driving. Please find a quiet place where you can be comfortable and able to clear your mind. We hope you enjoy part 2 of the teaching.
Okay, so the title of tonight's, of this evening is Calming the Mind to See Reality Clearly. And now we've dealt with the first 3 words, calming the mind, and now we have to talk about seeing reality clearly, which is actually the Laktong, or the insight meditation. Reality refers to the way things really are. Because the way we live now, we only see the things as they appear. We don't see them the way they really are. And the only way to do that is through first calming the mind and then looking into that mind. And then learning to recognize that mind, learning to know this mind, the essence of mind and the nature of mind. So only in that way we can really see the reality, which is the way things really are, not the way things appear to us. And this is what we're doing actually when we're doing the insight meditation. We are looking at the mind by the mind. So we're kind of turning the mind, instead of the mind looking outside, which it's always doing, we're just turning the mind in and looking at itself. Which may sound a little bit difficult because we're not used to do it. But that's what we're doing with this. We're looking at the mind by the mind. We're using the mind to look at the mind itself. And usually the Laktong meditation is introduced in 3 different steps, which are called in Tibetan the Ne Ju Rik Sum, which mean stillness, movement, and awareness. They're the 3 steps of meditation of Laktong. And what we're doing here is, first we need to calm the mind down through Shamatha meditation. We need to have a little bit of a stable mind in order to be able to look at it. And so when we say stillness, what we're doing is we're looking at the stable mind, by the mind itself. And we're noticing how the stable mind is, what is the essence of the stable mind, how does it feel, how do we experience it. And that is pretty much all about the first step. And then the second step is the moving mind. Because our mind can only be in 2 states. It can either be stable and calm and without thoughts, or it can be moving. It can be full of thoughts and emotions and everything. So we need to look at both of them. And after looking at the stable mind, we're going to look at the moving mind. And it will be a little bit like we are starting from this state of the stable mind, and we are observing the movement of the mind within the stable mind. We are observing how the thoughts come up, how the emotions come up, how we hear sounds, how we see forms, and in any way our mind moves. We are just observing it. So again, we're not following the thoughts, but we are using the mind to observe the moving mind. And we're trying to see how it is, to see what's the essence of the moving mind. We're trying to recognize that. And it is a little bit like what we talked before about the thoughts. Where do they come from? What are they? Where do they abide when they are present? And where do they go once they're gone? So we're a little bit observing this kind of how the moving mind functions. We're being aware of how the moving mind functions. And one of the ways to explain this through an example is when Milarepa, everybody knows about Milarepa, right? He was a Tibetan saint who lived, which century was it? 11th century or something like that. He was one of the forefathers of our lineage, and he was always teaching through these songs of realization. And in one of his songs of realization, he was describing our mind. And he was saying that when we meditate, our mind should be like the sky. But then, when the mind is like the sky, in this sky, the clouds appear. And then we should look, where do these clouds come from? They come from the sky, they remain in the sky, and they disappear back into the sky. They're nothing separate from the sky. And in the same way, when we meditate, our thoughts are just like the clouds. They appear out of the mind, they remain in the mind, and they dissolve back into the mind. But they're nothing separate from the mind. They're not separate from the mind itself. And in this way, we can try to understand how our moving mind works. Or another example is also from the same Song of Realization of Milarepa. He's saying, when we meditate, our mind should be like the ocean. But in the ocean, the waves appear. They come from the ocean, they remain in the ocean, and they disappear back into the ocean. They're not separate from the ocean. They've never been separate from the ocean. And our thoughts are just like the waves. So it is kind of learning to be, not to be involved with the clouds. It's learning to be the sky, which provides the space for the clouds to manifest, to come, to remain, and to disappear. And it's learning to be, not to be like the waves, not to be carried away by the waves in the ocean. It's learning to be the ocean and to just see our thoughts, our emotions to be just like the waves, which come and go and don't leave a trace after they're gone. So that's a little bit what we are trying to do when we are doing this kind of meditation. And then the third step is the awareness. But I think it's better that we do a guided meditation on all three steps, and I will explain the awareness through the meditation. It's better because it's no point in talking about it. So if there's any question about the first two steps, you can ask now. Otherwise, we will do guided meditation on this.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Related to what Wendy was saying, that there is this narrative. So maybe also when you do these steps, there is sort of a narrative asking, am I distracted by the problem? So how, by this, you create the impression that there is something else observing.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you move from that? How do you do it?
Well, because this is not really, it is not an intellectual exercise. It is more of a contemplation. And when we say contemplation, it means it's a little bit deeper than just mere thinking about things. So we are starting from this calm state of mind, which is already deeper than the intellectual level of mind. And from that, we need to have some concepts and thoughts to guide our meditation, but they're not the same as our usual daily thoughts. So it's more like trying to feel how it is, trying to feel the thoughts, rather than trying to put them in words, You're not observing where the thoughts come from, and then you say, oh, it's from the mind. It's not an intellectual thing. It's more like you're observing, you're kind of wondering where the thoughts come from, and you see they come from the mind. You see the difference? It's not thinking about where the thoughts come from. It's observing the thoughts, and really understanding where they come from by observing them. Does it make sense? Okay, so we will do the practice now. Okay, so in the beginning, we will begin in the same way like before. We will be observing our breath for a few minutes to calm the mind down. And now we just maintain the calm abiding state of mind. And we look at it. We are aware of it. We look at the mind by the mind itself. And now, again, we focus on the breathing. And now we let go of the support of the breath and we let our mind wander with awareness. We are aware of our wandering mind. We can also try to create thoughts if there are none to be found. And we are aware of the thoughts as they come up, as they remain, and as they disappear. We look at the mind and we think, who is thinking these thoughts? We look at awareness itself. And we see that when the mind is still, the awareness is there. And when the mind is moving, the awareness is there as well. It is exactly the same awareness. There is no difference between awareness of the still mind and awareness of the moving mind. So we're not on the surface of the ocean being carried around by the waves. We become the ocean. And now we let go of the contemplation and we just relax. We sit and relax. Okay. So this was a very simple introduction to the insight meditation. And what we need to do is to practice it again and again to become accustomed to it, so that this awareness becomes part of our meditation and then it becomes part of our lives as well. So what we are trying to see here is that it doesn't matter whether the mind moves, whether the mind is full of thoughts, or if whether the mind is still, this awareness is always there. So we are trying to recognize this awareness and make it become part of our lives. Actually, the Tibetan word for meditation is gom, and gom just means getting used to it, becoming accustomed to something. So what meditation is just becoming accustomed to our own awareness, which is always there anyway. So if there is any comments or questions or anything, we can discuss now.
I get
Similar, yes, it can be. It can be, unless there are images connected with the meditation, like here. If we were saying the ocean, then if you see the image, that's fine, you know. But if it's other images, it is also moving mind. Moving mind can be anything. Images outside, images in the mind, sounds, thoughts, emotions, memories. I think that's what it's meant for. It can help because it brings a certain feeling with it, which you cannot get to through concepts. So sometimes it's just better to feel like being an ocean. So I think that's a helpful image. At least to me it is. That's why all these visualizations that we do when we do many different Buddhist practices are meant for this, to help us to create the right thing that we're looking for through images, through visual supports also.
Is it so that when we get that feeling or that experience, then we've got the image, or we keep the image?
It doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter?
Not really, I don't think so. You can try to drop it and see what happens. Because that's also one important part of the meditation, that we just have to try things and see what happens, see what it does. So if dropping the image may help, or if working more on the image helps better, so just try and see. That's the bad news about Buddhism, that there is no recipe. You do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and everything will be fine, and you'll be liberated. It's not really like that, because also the Buddha himself said that he taught 84,000 different methods, because there are 84,000 different types of people. So every person has to find what works for them. And try it and see if it works, keep doing it. If it doesn't work, see how it can be fixed or changed or anything. So it's a very individual journey.
With this respect, I think the feeling with these instructions that you're given responsibility because you have to do your own practice. There's nothing that can be in your mind from outside. It's you with your mind. But with this responsibility, how can you really have the confidence that whatever you're doing is kind of the right thing? It's not just.
Well, that's why you need a teacher. That's why you practice, and then after some practice, you discuss your experiences with your teacher, and then your teacher will kind of guide you into which direction you need to go on, and progress.
But in a way, when you do this, you're on your own, it's right to experiment.
Yes, of course, of course. Then you have something to talk to your teacher, you know, otherwise you have nothing to talk about.
It's actually a really beautiful and profound meditation, isn't it? I really enjoyed it. It was like, I got the image of the sea as well, but it was like a really deep ocean, and the waves were just kind of insignificant on the top, and it was just like, you know, I'm here, and it doesn't kind of matter what's going on. It was quite a nice, safe, contained. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it can be useful also in our daily life, you know, when we find ourselves in some very turbulent situation or we have some very strong emotion, to repeat this meditation. And then we will see that it's just all these waves which are completely insignificant. So it can help also to find peace within our life, within our emotions, within difficult situations as well. because that's another illusion that we usually have in our life, that we have this and this problem and this difficulty and this thing to do, and then everything will be fine. You know, just if I take care of this and this and this, everything will be great. And we've had this all our life, and we're still there. We still have just one, two or three things to take care of, and then everything will be fine. But since it hasn't happened so far, I'm afraid it's not going to happen. It's just an illusion, I think. It's an illusion that we have, that we need to take care of things in order to be okay. But actually that's not true. We can be okay in the middle of everything. We can be okay right now. We don't need anything else to be okay. So that's the good news, actually. We don't need to take care of those things, don't worry. And it always feels kind of reachable, you know? It's not even unreachable. I think that's the trick. That's the trick which keeps us hooked, because it seems just these two or three things, you know, and then it will be fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just about to get there. Yeah. It's okay, it's fine, we can also get there. And we have gotten there so many times, you know. If we look back, you know, how many times have we had these few things, and we've done all of them, hundreds of times, and still we're not there, so there's something wrong with that idea. So we can be okay right now, right here. Okay, I think we've had good practice and good discussion. Maybe it's about time to... Yeah, we still have 10 minutes. Do you usually finish on time, or how do you do things? Indian time, or...
Time or a bit over time.
Yeah. Then maybe you can ask if you have any questions about something else as well. We can have a little bit more discussion.
I have a question, maybe related to this actually. Because you're saying that we are really releasing what we are in a way, just by letting be. And so in a way, this creates a feeling of relaxation, of being easy. But I had a lot of times that this also should bring, in a way, a sense of natural, genuine joy, because your mind is not just kind of flat, and relaxed like being flat.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you work on this, or is there anything to say about this?
Not so much, because that's it, you know, this joy comes from this essence of mind, which is already joyful, which is already peaceful, which is already pure and clear, and it has all the qualities. It has all the qualities exactly the same as a Buddha, but just that they're hidden. And when they come out, of course there's joy. Joy is one of them. Joy is one of the qualities. They say an interesting thing, that the fact that we're always looking for happiness, that we're always looking for peace and freedom and everything, is just a proof that we have this Buddha nature within us. It's this Buddha nature that is driving us to look for happiness. It is, so that's actually quite a beautiful thing, actually, because it means we're doing the right thing. The only thing is that sometimes we don't know where to find it. We don't know where to find this happiness. But looking for happiness is a proof that we have this Buddha nature, that our essence is like that.
And indeed, that's everyone's essence.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be happy.
All beings, even animals, what they're doing, all the time they're just looking for happiness, for comfort, for safety, for everything. All beings are like that. which is also very beautiful because it makes us respect all beings and appreciate all beings. And also understand all beings. That maybe all they're doing they're looking for happiness. They just don't know where to find it, and that's why we make mistakes, and that's why we do sometimes something wrong. But we can understand it. We don't need to blame them. We just try to understand them and encourage them to develop the positive qualities which will bring them happiness. How do you do your water meditations?
I use the waterfall, the rain, the ocean, the river, all forms, the sky.
Oh yeah, clouds are also water.
Exactly. Ice, sounds of water, taste of water, touch, everything.
Nice.
Sensory and water crystals.
Okay.
That's the visualization.
And the other are visualization practices, or using images also, or?
Yeah, using images also.
Mhm.
So sensory, starting with the waterfall, visualization of the waterfall, watching it, behind it, observing it, under it, and then the waterfall, river, and the ocean. All three stages. Visualizations of the water crystals are like, for example, like generation practice.
Okay.
So you visualize the water crystal. You first like watch a video of how it happened, because it arises from nothing and dissolves into nothing.
Okay.
So same practice, you visualize it arising, and you visualize it dissolving.
Very interesting. I'll have to come when you do your courses. Water is also an example of how our meditation happens. First, it happens like waterfall. So we think that our mind is like a waterfall. There's so many thoughts and so many emotions and so much noise and everything happening. And so what happens is we end up under the waterfall, which is not very pleasant sometimes. So what we need to do is we don't need to stop the waterfall. We don't need to go up and build a dam so that the waterfall doesn't happen anymore. What we need to do is just to remove ourselves and to watch the most beautiful waterfall on this planet. So we just need to remove ourselves from our thoughts a little bit and watch them just in the same way as we watch a beautiful waterfall. So that's the first experience that we have in our meditation. And to remove ourselves from it is how to deal with this first experience, to enjoy it instead of being carried away by it. And then our meditation changes and becomes like a river. Second stage, no? When our thoughts are a little bit more peaceful and a little bit more slower, and we notice also the undercurrents of our thoughts. Because in the first stage we don't see the deeper levels of our mind because we are too occupied in the superficial levels of our mind. And then in the second stage, then we start to notice the undercurrents and start to work with those too. And there actually the remedy to that, how to make that stage work, is the opposite. Because usually what happens is that we're too far from the river, so we don't see that it's moving. Because it's a very big river running in the plains. So what we need to do, we need to get closer and to see that it's moving, to see that even though we don't have these superficial thoughts and emotions, that the undercurrent is still happening. So we need to be aware of it and to work with that too. And then the third stage is the ocean, where our mind is like an ocean, where nothing can disturb it anymore. So I hope we can all travel towards the ocean as quick as possible. Rowing, yes. Cesar is already rowing. Anything else that anybody would like to share or say or ask or anything?
May I ask you what kind of first drew you to Buddhism itself?
Sorry, say again.
What first drew you to Buddhism? How did you come to find out about Buddhism?
Well, it's a long story. I was just telling something to Cesar yesterday. But I was always a little bit of a seeker. And the thing was that there was no religion really in my country at that time. It was a socialist country, so the religion was not very encouraged, and also my family was not religious or anything. So what I noticed by being brought up like that is that something was missing in my life, some meaning was missing in my life. And there had to be something more to life than just to, I don't know, finish school and get a family and get a job and die. I was like, that cannot be all there is to life. And so I was kind of looking for things, and I always felt some connection to Tibet for some reason, and to Buddhism, even though I didn't know anything. There were no books, there was no internet, there was nothing. But there was always something about Tibet and something about Buddhism that I was kind of looking for. And then some monks came to our capital city to make a sand mandala, and I happened to see the ad of the sand mandala, and I went there to see it. And I met those monks, and I asked them where do they live, and they said they lived in India, in Dharamsala. And then I asked whether I could just come there, or if there is any way that I could spend more time with them. And they said, sure, you're most welcome, just come. And then pretty much what I did, I went to talk to my mom. I asked her if she wants to come with me to India, and she immediately said yes. So we bought the tickets and we left. Well, it took some time, but that's pretty much what happened. And when we came to Dharamsala, I think second or third day, we already met His Holiness the Karmapa. He just came, it was the year 2000, so it was just a few months after he escaped from Tibet. So he just arrived to Dharamsala, and we came there and we met him, and I knew that was it. So then I started receiving more teachings and practices, and I started to do short retreats, and I never went back to university or to any kind of things that I was doing. And then I ended up just staying in India and doing the 4 years retreat in Sikkim. So that's pretty much it.
All from a sun mandala.
Yeah, from the flyer of the sand mandala. But I was looking for something, and also I think one of the conditions was that I had, not big, but I had some difficulties in my childhood. So I knew that what everybody was saying that life was about, I knew that it would not fulfill my expectations. So I knew that there had to be something else. And there's nothing wrong with life, there's nothing wrong with having a job, there's nothing wrong with having a family. It's all wonderful. But I think we need something, a little bit, to know some deeper meaning of everything. And then we can work better, and we can have a better family and better everything. And then it was also the Buddhism. I found everything was logical. There was no dogma. There was no questions that you're not supposed to ask. There were not so many things that you're not supposed to do. And all these kind of things. And I was always very I don't know what's the word, but I was looking for answers, and I was not happy with superficial answers, you know. So I was looking at other places also. I went to some New Age meditations and all these things, which are good. There's nothing wrong with them, but all their answers didn't seem to go deep enough for me. And only in Buddhism I found the answers, like really to everything, to all levels of reality that I wanted to know about it. All the explanations are there, and that's what really impressed me. And that's what made me want to go deeper. And that's why I decided also to go into retreat and to practice, because the only way to really understand it is to sit and do it. And now here I am in Kent.
We'll be handing out applications before your retreat.
But you spend half in East and half in West as well?
Now, yes. Before I was more in the East than in the West. And now I do half-half, yes. Winters in India and summers in Europe. Yeah. Because summers in India are not so nice, because there's the monsoon rains and it's all wet and moldy. And winters here are also a little bit cold for me, so I just take the best of both of them. Plus I like to continue studying and practicing and everything, so I cannot do so much of that here in Europe, so that's why I disappear for a few months.
How long do you meditate each day?
Well, it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm traveling or like this, then usually I don't do more than 2 hours a day. I cannot do more than that. But then if I'm in retreat, it's 12 hours, something like that. Yeah, the 3-year retreat, there's no holidays, there's no weekends, there's no Christmas. But that's why it allows you to go a little bit deeper, you know, because you don't have excuses, you know, you don't have holidays, you don't have movies, you don't have so many things, yes. And 1 year in the retreat we spent in total silence. So, So again, you have nowhere to run away to and nobody to talk to, nobody else to blame. It's just you and yourself in your room. But it's wonderful. I enjoyed the retreat so much.
When you're in the retreat and you say you're just doing it, you get to a point where you do need do you have to drink or something?
That's why we have guidance in retreat. Ringu Tulku was our retreat master, and yes, so he would come every now and then. He would not be there all the time with us, but we had a resident Lama who lived there with us all the time. So whenever there was something, we could talk to him and ask for advice and ask for guidance, yes. Yeah, otherwise you go crazy, I think. But that's what it means to have really good teachers, because then they give you the right advice that you need at the moment. And then when you're in retreat, actually you still do the opposite, you know. But then you get tired of doing the opposite, and then many times it happened to me. That's what I'm saying, you know. Like I was getting tired of doing always the same mistakes, which made myself feel bad and made all the others feel bad too, you know. So then I asked for advice, you know, what can I do? And what the Lama said was like, what is he saying? Doesn't make sense, you know. So I kept doing my way until I got really tired, and I said, okay, let's at least try what he says, and even though I don't believe into it, you know, I don't believe in it. And then I tried, and it worked. And I was like, oh, I see. But if we're not in retreat, we don't really have time, you know, to get really fed up with ourselves. And we don't have time to see our mind so much, and to see how it works and to see how it drives us crazy. So it's a very good practice. Not very easy, not always easy, but it's very rewarding, because you can see that if you change something, it works better. So at least once you try and it works, you know it's possible. And then you do 10 more times the usual way, but then you get tired of that again and you try again a different way and it works. So for me that was a very good training.
When I used to say change a thing, sorry, I've forgotten that. Change a thing, oh no, it's gone.
Did I change what? You mean?
Change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. There you go.
I see, okay, that's true, that's true. That's totally true.
It's like you say, you keep looking.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, oh, it works, wow. What was that story that Rinpoche always tells about the shepherd?
Oh, the wise shepherd.
Yeah, do you all know the story of the wise shepherd? Yeah, maybe we can finish with that story. It's a very nice, if I'd be able to tell it. Yeah, bedtime story, yes. So there was this shepherd sitting on the crossroads, and then one person came walking on the road and stopped and talked to the shepherd, and he said, are you from the village down there that you can see from the mountain? And then the shepherd said, yes, I come from there. And then the guy asked, so what are the people like in your village? And then the shepherd didn't answer, but he asked him, what are the people like in the village where you come from? And then he said, well, they're kind of not nice, and they fight a lot, and they don't help each other, and it's really not a very nice village, the place where I come from. And then the shepherd said, well, my village is exactly like that. People are not very nice, they don't help each other, they're not very supportive, they fight a lot, and like that. And then he went on his way. The guy went on his way, and shepherd was still sitting there. And then a second person came and asked the shepherd, so do you come from the village down there in the valley? And the shepherd said, yes, that's where I come from. And then the guy asked, so how are the people in your village? And the shepherd said, how are the people in the village where you come from? And then the guy said, well, they're really nice and helpful and supportive, and we're all very good friends and harmonious, and we help each other and we take care of each other, and like that. And then the shepherd said, in that village, people are exactly like that. So it just shows many times the way you are, the way everybody around you feels it feels like that. So I think that was the bedtime story. You want to do the dedication? Merit may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemies of false and delusion, may all beings be freed from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness and death, the ocean of samsara. Manifesting from the luminosity of perfect natural harmony, always unmarked by the signs of aging and decline, may you remain in the essence of the deity in totality. Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Beautiful, profound teaching in the evening together. Please come back after you get back from India. And maybe next time, if it's possible, to have a day retreat would be wonderful.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Coming in.
Thank you. And I wish all of you wonderful practice over the winter. And I hope that your group will develop with the speed that it has developed so far, which is a lot. And it will benefit many, many people and be a good inspiration to everybody.
This has been a Bodhicharya Kent audio production.